What's your name? What can I call you by?
My name's Nicholas.
Nicholas, nice to meet you. I'm Naomi. Hit me up. What do you want to talk about?
So, Naomi, what do you mean by don't say gay bills aren't L? Do you mean like leftists that think gay as calling someone gay would be offensive, or just
I'm
like
talking about
gay?
bills which limit teachers' ability to talk about like queer identity, sex education. Bills which are stopping teachers from talking about those topics, I think, are very harmful.
Uh, so what do you mean by education? Because I know there's some
Mhm.
elementary schools. There's schools that should not be talking about sex education in the grade levels that they are talking about, like third grade, second grade, fourth grade. I think that should only be talked about in colleges, high schools.
So I
For
think
the
that
other.
broadly what I'm referring to is comprehensive sex education, which is absolutely a program which begins with an age appropriate discussion when these discussions are pertinent. And I do think that there is a related conversation which is very important at the elementary school level, which is just like abuse prevention education. Just the idea of like what is appropriate versus inappropriate touch, what are the names of my body parts, like what is consent, those basic ideas. I think that elementary schoolers do need to know that. We have empirical studies which demonstrate that when elementary schoolers are taught this, they know how to call it abuse, and it actually stops abuse from happening, be it in the home, be it in the church, be it anywhere else. When they have the knowledge and the ability to call that out, that is a super important skill that they need in elementary school. But then, like as they get older, obviously talking about puberty, things like contraceptives, safe sex, those things are super important as well. We have empirical studies which shows that those reduce the rates of teen pregnancy, they reduce the rates of teen abortions, all of these amazing empirical outcomes. Actually, fun fact, when you teach teens comprehensive sex education, they're actually less likely to have sex as teenagers. When you teach them that comprehensive sex education, they're more likely to wait until they feel safe and ready. And when they do, they're more likely to engage in safe sex practices. So I think that this, comprehensive sex education process, obviously it's about having age appropriate conversations when they're pertinent, and that's going to be like a process.
I do agree in sex education as teen, but for kids like in elementary school, that doesn't really sound like a class they should be taking. That sounds more of a job for the parents to be doing.
Are you
Also,
opposed to like abuse prevention education in elementary school?
uh, not
Just
really,
like
but
the idea of appropriate versus inappropriate touch, what are the names of my body parts, those kind of things.
uh, no, not that. It's just
So when referring to comprehensive sex education, that's all that I'm essentially referring to in elementary school. And obviously, like what is puberty? Elementary school or kids, late elementary school, will start to experience puberty. At least some of them will.
okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. But why are you calling sex education gay bills?
So the Don't Say Gay bills that have been proposed across legislatures have targeted both the education about queer identities and sex education. A lot of these bills have targeted either or both. So that's why I'm using Don't Say Gay broadly as a moniker or like a nickname to refer to those kind of bills.
Uh, so you're talking about transgender education.
Just like the idea that trans people exist, and that like essentially just like the fact about the world that trans people exist and that they deserve respect the same as any other person. Yeah, I think that should be talked about in schools.
I don't believe that they are.
You don't believe that trans people exist, or that
No, I don't think they exist because I believe you're born either one gender or the other. I think people are confusing both of them and trying to believe in science, which if they believe in science, they should believe in basic, uh, what's it called? Biology.
so do you think that people who believe in science believe in advanced biology or like just basic biology?
Well, any biology, really. I mean, more basic
Uh-huh.
because,
Do you think that like trans people are denying biology?
yes, because,
How
like,
so?
because you're either born a man or a woman. How are you?
So I'm
How,
gonna tell you, trans people are aware that they're born like male or female. That's why they do things like take hormones and medically transition. Like if a trans woman wasn't aware that she was born male, why would she take estrogen? Like there wouldn't be any reason for her to take estrogen if she like was if she thought that she was just like the same as a female, you know?
yeah, but why would you take chemicals and medication to try and change your gender.
So, uh, okay, I think broadly speaking, first we kind of need to decouple the idea of like sex and gender. Are you aware of like the broad distinction between biological sex and gender?
Yes.
Okay, so when somebody's taking hormones, that's more so to change some characteristics of their biological sex. And people take medicine all the time because it makes them feel better. It improves their mental health, it improves physical health. There are lots of reasons we take medicine. And we have so many empirical studies, peer-reviewed studies, which show that trans people, when they're able to medically transition, it absolutely improves their mental health. And so much for the same reason why I think antidepressants are great for people that deal with depression. Things like ADHD meds are great for people that deal with ADHD, anxiety meds. You know, prescribing medicine to treat mental health is a wonderful thing to do. And if a trans person's mental health treatment is estrogen, go for it. Why not?
Hold on. Let me talk to my family real quick. I'm on a guest
Okay.
thing right now on TikTok, so if you guys can, I'm doing a debate. You too, Miranda, please. So I do agree that it's good to take medicine if you are sick, to change your body or anything that's wrong with it. But being a man or a woman and not liking certain parts of it and thinking that you're sick because of it is wrong, because that makes you think that something's wrong about yourself.
So I don't think that like being trans is necessarily like a sickness, but rather just if somebody can take a medicine that's going to improve their well-being, I think that's fantastic. I mean, like for example, like people that have ADHD, they don't need to take stimulant medication to survive. However, stimulant medication still helps them, and I think it's a good thing to prescribe it to people whom it helps simply because it helps them, simply because they're able to better self-actualize. It improves their mental health. And so even if somebody is not like sick or diseased and kind of like that way we might understand those words, just taking medicine to help someone seems like a great thing to do.
Well, yeah, but ADHD and gender is really different because, for
I'm aware that they're
like, if
different.
you're a man
It's
or
an
a woman,
analogy.
there's I know, but that's everyday like life. You're either man or woman. Everyone's a man or woman. Uh, but ADHD. I mean, you see hundreds, thousands of example military veterans or service members that have ADHD and they kill themselves like every day. 2022 now, it's gone up from 21 to 22. I think in the last 1 to 2 years, 400,000 service members in the military suicide since 2001, and a large number of those ADHD.
Are you referring to
You don't really
PTSD or
see.
ADHD there?
Oh crap! No, man, that's right. PTSD.
You're okay.
Man,
You're okay.
oh
No,
man,
but
I was
like
one
I mean,
letter off.
broadly
Man.
speaking, I think that I don't think you pointed out any way in which the ADHD case is disanalogous to say like a trans person wanting to take estrogen simply because it improves their mental health. So like would you say that it's okay for like an ADHD for someone with ADHD to take, stimulant medication because it helps them focus, it helps them get their work done, it improves their mental health? Is that a good thing for them to do?
Yes, because it's
Awesome.
a mental sickness.
So it's only okay because of the mental sickness. If like ADHD was not a mental sickness, then it would be wrong if this medicine helped them for them to take it.
I think it would be okay if there were some side effects that happen from it, like you can't read or learn, right? I think it's okay to
Well,
have
that's
a
not what
little bit
that's
of.
not what ADHD meds do. You can
I
still
know
read
that.
and learn with ADHD meds.
Okay, can you explain it?
Yeah,
What
so
do you mean?
essentially, for people with ADHD, their brains have this essentially like they don't produce as much dopamine as other people. So if they're like working on a task that is not something that's like super interesting to them, then it's a lot harder for them to stay focused, stay on task. They often struggle with executive dysfunction, which is the idea of like, I know I need to do this task. I'm going to have my brain make my body physically go do this task. It's a problem with like dopamine regulation. And we have stimulant medication for people with ADHD, which essentially what it does is it raises the level of dopamine in their brains such that it helps them overcome this executive dysfunction. They are now much better at having their brain tell their body, hey, go do that work you need to do and stay focused on doing that work. So we have this medicine that helps somebody who's kind of struggling in these areas. It helps them be more focused, be able to get their work done, and it improves their mental health, is what the empirical studies show that it does. Now, similarly, a trans person taking HRT, we have medical studies, empirical studies, which show that it improves their mental health. It improves, their overall satisfaction with life. It lowers rates of depression and anxiety and rates of unaliving. And I think that all of these, broadly speaking, are good outcomes. For me, what matters most is, are we creating a net good outcome for this person? And it seems that in the case of the ADHD med, absolutely. If this person's able to now do tasks that they weren't able to do before, if they are able to feel better about themselves in a way that is healthy and happy, that's wonderful. And the same thing is true about the trans person. They experience better overall outcomes when they're able to medically transition. At least that's something that's desired for them. So it's just like another form of medicine in general.
Okay, so I do believe in the medicine for the ADHD people, but if I don't like something about myself, like trans people, they want to change their gender, right, or be trans, uh, that means that
There
if
are
I don't
also
like
trans
something
people
about,
that don't do it just because they dislike their current gender. They just desire to transition. And I think it's okay if somebody takes medicine or takes a supplement out of a desire to change. I mean, bodybuilders take supplements all the time so they can put on extra muscle mass, right?
yeah, I don't think it's healthy for them, but I mean, if they want to, as long as it's legal, I suppose they can.
I
But
think that there are ways that people can do this healthily and unhealthily. Obviously, there are people that abuse supplements and steroids. That's not a good thing. But there is a healthy way to take supplements, get your vitamin and hormone levels monitored. And the same thing is true about trans people. If you're doing DIY HRT under the table and not getting your hormone levels tested, that can create some potential problems. However, if you're going to an endocrinologist, getting your hormone levels tested, making sure that everything is healthy and that you're going through with doctors in this process, it seems like there is no health risks. We actually have empirical studies which show that trans people's mortality is not significantly impacted by HRT.
okay, so if people are trying to be change themselves, right?
Oh, sorry, you're
Let's
cutting out a little
say
bit. I can't quite
they
hear
don't
you.
like something about themselves and they want to. Let's say a trans person or someone wants to change their gender to trans, right?
Someone
Because
wants to
let's say they don't
transition?
like
Yeah.
themselves or they want to change. Yeah, because they want to change something about
Hmm.
themselves. Then let's say I don't like something about myself, I can go take cocaine or drugs, right? Because I don't
Well,
like it.
if you're truly asking this question in good faith, I think that the best thing we can do is assess the outcomes of people. And I'm pretty sure that for most people, taking cocaine in the long term is not going to do very much good for them. We have studies which show that using the substance tends to harm people. However, the studies on HRT and trans people shows that it helps them. If you're truly asking that question in good faith, I think that there absolutely is a delineation point, and the delineation point is if the outcome is harmful. And in the case of cocaine, the outcome is harmful. In the case of HRT, the outcome is actually beneficial for the trans people. And that's just what the medical studies show.
Well, there's always going to be risk with taking chemicals and changing your gender and going through surgery.
Well, absolutely. Every medicine has risks. That's why doctors do a risk benefit analysis to assess whether or not a medicine would benefit a patient. And, based on the empirical studies we have, the very fact that shows that when trans people transition, overwhelmingly they are satisfied with the results. Overwhelmingly, it drastically improves their mental health. I think that shows that these medicines, they're doing a very good job at finding out who is actually going to benefit from them, and they end up benefiting from it. Nobody's saying that medicine doesn't have any risks. But broadly speaking, this is why we do a risk benefit analysis, and not all trans people do medically transition. It's more so just for those that desire it.
Okay, so what's the difference between trying to change your gender because you want to and taking those chemicals and drugs and taking weed because you want to stop pain?
Well, I think that if the outcome of both is beneficial, then I think there are absolutely medicinal purposes of things like CBD. This has been demonstrated, in the medical literature. Yeah, there's absolutely medicinal uses of herb, and if somebody is using it in a way that is healthy, that is not harming them, that is, creating good outcomes, I'm totally okay with that.
No, but both of them are harming them. if you're taking weed or any drug, it's still going to harm you. What's the difference between taking a drug because you want to and becoming trans because you want to?
So I think that I do want to be clear. There are absolutely people that use medical herb in a way that helps them, and in a way which we have empirical studies which show that, yes, this absolutely is the best treatment we have for relieving their chronic pain, for example. Also for stopping seizures. Like these are real use cases where it can absolutely be beneficial. And so long as it's beneficial, I have no problem with it. Now, if it is something that's harming the person, then yeah, I don't think that's a good thing. However, this is why we need to analyze these things on kind of a case by case basis. Doctors do risk benefit analyses and they determine what's going to be right for their patients.
Okay, let's say it wasn't for medical, right? Because what's really medical about going trans? We have we do have herbs that are for medical, but let's say you are taking an illegal drug. What is the difference between taking an illegal drug because you want to and going trans because you want to? Because going trans just means that you're trying to become a man, woman. What is beneficial from that?
So it would be beneficial if it improves their mental health, and the empirical studies show it does improve their mental health. So I do want to be clear. I don't think that legality is the same thing as morality, but for lots of illegal substances, it seems to be the case that they worsen people's mental health when they use them over time. However, the empirical studies we have on trans medicine show that HRT improves the mental health of trans people when they take it over time. So once again, my criteria is I'm going to analyze this on a case by case basis. If this is something that has consequentially positive outcomes for the mental health of somebody, positive outcomes for their physical health or neutral outcomes for physical health, seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Now, if this is something that's negatively impacting someone, then they probably shouldn't be doing it. And, there are people who do have bad relationships with some of these substances. And I think that, talking to doctors to get a healthier relationship or to get off substances that are harming somebody is something they should do. But, that's the broadest prescription I can make, is that we have to handle this on a case by case basis. And for me, the delineation point is going to be harm.
Okay, so let's say there's two men. There are two men that are going through depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of them is taking drugs, illegal drugs, because it makes him feel better, right? To stop him from doing something bad or getting himself hurt. And another man that wants to become a woman because he's a man and he gets depressed from that somehow.
Okay.
What is the difference between them two? Because you're taking a drug which is going to harm you, and you're
Wait.
trying
How
to
does
become a woman,
HRT harm trans people?
there's...
Hold up. I need to be real clear. If you're going to say that the illegal substance harms somebody, yes, there are harmful illegal substances. What's the harm of someone taking HRT though?
No, I'm not talking about taking HRT. I'm talking about the surgery and the risks that come with trying to become a trans person.
What's the harm?
Well, the surgery, the chemicals you're taking.
Wait, you know that HRT is the chemicals, right? Like that's the medicine that we prescribe trans people. We call it HRT.
And there's never been anything wrong with putting that in somebody. There's never been any medical cases.
So obviously, every medicine has risks. However, the empirical studies we have on trans HRT is that it does not have a significant impact on the mortality of trans people.
But it still does have an impact on trans people, right?
Yes, a positive impact.
Okay, so no, I'm talking about negative impact.
So the net impact of HRT on trans people is positive. That's what the empirical studies show.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'm asking if there has ever been anything wrong with taking those chemicals, and you said
yes,
there are
there
always
have
risks.
been people. There have been people whose bodies have reacted negatively to hormones, and either they adjust the dosage or they might have to go off the hormones because they work with doctors to figure this out. That's just how the system works.
Okay. So
it's the same thing. It's the same thing for somebody who takes Tylenol and then they find out they have a bad reaction to the Tylenol and the doctors help them work through it and then either change them off to a different medicine or something. Even you could do this exact same kind of fear mongering about Tylenol.
Okay, but you take Tylenol once every I don't know, a few hours for 2 days or something. These are chemicals you're taking for weeks or months to change
Yes.
your biology. That is a
And
lot more risky than
HRT
Tylenol.
has no
Now,
significant
wait,
impact on the mortality of trans people. We have studies which demonstrate this.
okay, but there are risks to taking it, right?
Yes, every medicine has risks, even
Okay,
Tylenol.
and you're taking it for months or weeks. I would say that that is a bit risky to Tylenol.
All medicine has
And
risks.
wait,
I can make the
just let me
same
finish.
argument to
Just
say
let me
that
finish.
wait. By this very argument, we could say that like we should never prescribe people ADHD meds or antidepressants because they have risks. That's just such a silly argument.
No, but it's the fact that you're trying to become trans and you're knowing that you're gonna have to take this.
Uh-huh. There are so many people that take medicine every day, knowing they have to
I
take it
know, but
every
you're not
day because it
intentionally
helps
trying to.
them. That's just how medicine works.
I know, but you're not intentionally trying to become sick, but you are intentionally trying to change your gender and take those chemicals,
Yeah,
right?
what's wrong with that?
I know, but there's risks. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, all medical treatments
Okay,
have risks. What's wrong with that?
okay. I'm saying, what is the difference between taking drugs illegally because you're depressed and being depressed and changing your gender?
So the difference would be whether or not it's actually going to help someone. If this person is depressed because they are transgender and because they are not
And
happy
illegal
in
drugs
the current
often
gender
do
that they're
help people
let me finish. Let me finish.
with their mental.
If the difference is if this person is actually transgender and perhaps suffering from gender dysphoria, and the HRT they take alleviates their gender dysphoria, improves their mental health, helps them get out of the depression, which the empirical studies show happens often, versus with the illegal substances that often just pushes people further into depression with things like substance abuse disorders. So that's the difference. One is helping the person in the long term, the other is harming the person in the long term.
Okay. Also, I just want to say I see people in the chat saying that I'm calling you guys addicts. I am not. I'm just trying to make a comparison and do an example. I'm not trying to offend you by calling you drug addicts. But what
Yeah,
is the
I think we've gone
difference
over this example
between
like
the
three
actual?
times now. The difference is whether or
I
not
know,
it
but I'm
helps
trying to
them.
explain it, and you're trying to continue about your statistics. Statistics.
Aren't we talking about like the impacts of these medicines versus drugs? I think that we should look at the
I know.
statistics if we're trying to assess the impacts or whether or not this is something that's worth prescribing to people.
I know. I know. I'm just trying to get through my point. What is
Okay,
the
what's
difference
your point?
between because mentally people do have a positive impact from taking legal drugs, because if you're depressed and you take those illegal drugs, you're less likely to commit like suicide or not do a harm to
So
yourself,
do you
but less
recognize that we
so.
can analyze the difference between benefits in the short term versus benefits in the long term? Obviously, somebody who just took cocaine is going to report feeling very good, but that doesn't mean it's helping them in the long term. We have long-term studies about cocaine versus HRT, and it seems that in the long term, cocaine's pretty bad for you, but in the long term, HRT is very good for you if you're trans, of course.
I agree.
Like these are like
Okay.
really easy. Like we just have to assess the consequences of these medicines and whether or not they're beneficial to people in the long term. We absolutely have long-term studies on trans medicine. People that say we don't are lying to you. I have an entire research doc dedicated to this.
Can you tell me the sources to those researches?
You want some sources? I have entire collections of peer-reviewed
Yes, please.
studies. We can start with some yeah, there is a systematic literature review done by Cornell, which was a collection of 55 peer-reviewed studies. We have TNF Online, another very well-renowned journal. They have a systematic literature review collection of 38 peer-reviewed studies. I have a PubMed systematic literature review of 29 peer-reviewed studies. I mean, across all of those, that's like at least 100 peer-reviewed studies of like the effects of HRT on trans people, on their mental health.
Okay, and these are all independent companies?
So these
Not
are research
politicians,
studies,
but
peer-reviewed research studies.
okay.
So these would be done by things like public universities, hospitals, those kind of things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we have
Okay.
studies that go like literal decades even. This one, 24 years. I have one that went up to 50 years. Like, we have long-term studies on this stuff.
Okay. I mean, what? All right. I'm sorry. I gotta go. We're almost there. It was good
Okay.
talking to you, though.
Yeah, well, thanks
All
for
right.
coming on.